Okay, Nick, thank you so much for your words. So, thank you so much for Len inviting me to be here. I'm delighted to be part of the Learn to Swim Commission and to share the stage with my colleague Aisling McKeever. Well, this is a two-part presentation. And it's not easy to be the following speaker after so wonderful session we had before. I don't have any nice story to share with you. I was, in fact, a national swimmer. My best story would be the fact that I was stunned by a bee on the starting block. That's my best story. It will give you a boost higher than your swimming suit from Speedo and Arena, I'm sure. So, my presentation, the purpose of this presentation is to share with you our data gathering. We did that last year. It was one of the first tasks of this Learn to Swim Commission. The purpose was to understand how Learn to Swim, thank you so much, how Learn to Swim is being delivered across Europe based on the members' federations, so the perception of European swimming member federations. So, because it's also the purpose of this presentation to set the scene to further discussion that will follow, some of this discussion will be led by some of our members from this commission. I will introduce them very shortly and the purpose of this commission. So, as you all may know, in 2022, the new Land Board of Directors established a strategic plan for the future. So 4 strategic pillars were created, were established, with several actions to be driven over time by different agents. And the Learn to Swim Commission was established under Pillar 2 with this vision. Will be a driving force behind European-wide commitment to support more people to learn to swim, and by doing that, we will be preventing drowning. So we need your support, and we need your commitment to achieve this goal. So this here on the left, you can see all the people under this commission. We are from different countries with different backgrounds, which makes us, I suppose, a very pragmatic team. Yes, it also includes our president, some members of the bureau, and Farouk, who it's always keeps us very organized and efficient. So after the first weeks, the commission was created. It was necessary to understand what is our goal, and especially our roadmap for the future. So 4 pillars of intervention were established, were created. The first pillar is the promotion, to commit to a common vision for aquatics. That's the reason why we propose to organize this conference. That's the reason why we are all here together to make this network strong. The next pillar, it's about the programs. We understand the need to create a common curriculum and perhaps to provide some highlights to swimming teachers training programs. That's the topic that Boro and Farouk will talk tomorrow. Another pillar is about the standards to create. We feel that there is a need to create a consensus standards to the quality and safety of swimming education programs. That's the topic of Aisling, so don't miss it. And the last pillar is about the knowledge. We feel that the need also to gather and to report data and promote the exchange of good practices. That's the reason why we created this survey, and that's the reason why I'm talking to you about the main results. So let's check the survey. The survey was conducted last year. We created 26 questions. These are not academic questions. These are pragmatic questions. So 49 of the 52 member federations responded to this survey, which is, I suppose, a very good ratio. And let's check it out, the results. The first question was about the national definition. If exists, in fact, a national definition of what constitutes being able to swim in your country. And as you can see here, in 20% of the countries, there is not any definition. And in 35%, that definition is provided by the federation. But the most interesting results is on the left, because we asked the countries, the federations, to share with us their definition of being able to swim. And their definition reflects somehow what the divergency we can find on the literature. The concept of being able to swim and the concept of aquatic literacy are two independent concepts, but we believe they are being used as in a common way. So in some federations and some countries are defining being able to swim as a formal standard like swimming 200 meters. But some countries and some federations are saying that being able to swim is also including some aquatic competence standards. So it's more a broader understanding of what means to being able to swim. And this we need to discuss. And further, most of these definitions don't include any safety issue. So I feel like it's a concern. So we should talk about this further. So our next question is about if there is any government Learn to Swim program in your country. And in almost 40% of European countries, there is not. Fortunately, almost all European swimming federations have its own program. And this program, as you can see here on the right, it's mainly focused on school swimming, not so much on kindergarten or babies, but on school swimming, elementary school children. And is being monitored by the government, by swimming federations, and sometimes is not monitored at all, which is also a concern to look further. Well, the next question is very, very important, and I hope we will discuss it further during the weekend. Is swimming part of the physical education curriculum in your country? And you can see, as you can see here, in 20% of European countries, swimming is not part of the curriculum. But in 40%, it's an optional content. That's the scenario I know from Portugal. Swimming is only conducted under the school system, under special conditions, with the support of municipalities or parents' associations. So this project of swimming education is most focused on elementary school children, for the most part, can be founded by the government in some European countries, can be founded by parents' associations, can be founded by municipalities, the case I know in Portugal, or by other means. So there is variation on the funding way. Well, the next question is about the qualification. If there is any kind of qualification system applying in each country. And in 30% of the European countries, there isn't. But in 49%, there is not even a register system. So it's very hard when you ask a federation how many swimming teachers you have and what is the profile of your swimming teachers. If they don't have a registration system, it's very hard to answer to these detailed questions. So the next question was about how many hours does it take to achieve a swimming teacher's technical qualification at the introductory level. This question was very wild because it was important to treat the data, as you can see here. It feels like every country, every federation has its own path to achieve a qualification level. So I won't speak about this data because it's absolutely important, impossible to treat. We have 49 different responses here. So the next question was about the balance, the weighting between theoretical content and practical content. And as you can see here, in almost half of the European countries, there seems to be a balance between 50 and 60% between theoretical contents in classroom and practical contents in the poolside. And the contents that are being delivered at classroom are here on the left. So biomechanics, pedagogy, water familiarization, the learning of the four strokes, turnings and starts, and water safety. So there is an agreement, I suppose, about the contents, the syllabus, the curriculum. And of course, the practical on poolside is being conducted under supervision for the most part. Well, the next question is the license, because one thing is the registration, the qualification, and another thing is the license. So as you can see here, in 25% of European countries, based on the data we gathered from the Federation, you don't need a license to be a swimming teacher. But in 51%, you need a license. But in some cases, as you see over there, you only need a license if you work to the Federation or if you work to some clubs. So there is quite a variation over here, and I believe this is another important question to discuss this weekend. Very important. In fact, this is not a problem of swimming. It is a problem of amateur sports. As you may know, we have in Europe more than 9 million coaches, and less than half of that coaches are really registered and really qualified to do that. So that's, I believe, a problem we should discuss further. Who grants that license? It can be the federation, it can be the government, it can be another entity. And that license can vary between 2 years and forever. So quite a variation here. And only in 61% of the countries, you need to do continuous professional development to renew your license. So another important fact we should also be aware of. Okay, the next question will be about the barriers federations feel about recruiting swimming teachers. And as you can see here, it seems to be a challenge, at least for 30% of European countries. It's very difficult to recruit swimming teachers. And because most of the federations don't have a true register system, it's hard to answer that question on the right. So they are unsure if the number of swimming teachers are sufficient to the needs. In fact, in 20% of the countries, they feel the number of swimming teachers is not enough. The next question is about, in a very simple way, to understand the characteristics of learn to swim in each country. As you can see here, in most of the countries, they deliver 1 or 2 lessons per week. The lessons are 45 minutes long. And we have, of course, in average, more students, a ratio higher between the number of students and per teacher in beginner classes compared to advanced classes, which is, of course, a quality standard. But we also see some variation, which is, I suppose, an opportunity to look this in detail in the future for quality purposes. Well, the next question was about the facilities, and the answers were, of course, these ones, because we all know that most of our schools don't have swimming pools. So that's the reason why, perhaps, swimming is not a mandatory content in several countries. And as you can see here on the right, they also feel in more than 50% of the European countries that the number of swimming pools is not enough. That's another important issue we should discuss further. The number of swimming pools per inhabitant in different regions, okay? Well, and about the barriers, we ask them to rank in order of importance these 5 bigger challenges. And as you can see here, the score in each challenge is very significant. They feel like, in fact, there is a need for more facilities. There is a need to create a common curriculum. There is a need to suggest and improve the qualification procedures. There is, in fact, a difficulty to gather more swimming teachers for the needs. And the cost, perhaps, should be funded by the government in order to reach different kinds of populations, especially those populations with lower socioeconomic status. Okay, because there is a link, as you all know, between knowing how to swim and to be safe in the water, we also ask federations if they have any formal responsibility about water safety in Europe. And as you can see here, in most than 70% of European countries, federations don't have any formal responsibility. That formal responsibility changes between national governments, local agencies, local governments, local organizations, and so on. So we have a mix of models regarding this. That's a political issue to be discussed, I suppose. Well, the last question was about the lifeguards, and we understood that in almost 90% of European countries, lifeguards need to have a license to practice, but they need to be certified, and that certification, it's important because it's mandatory for most of the countries a lifeguard to be present there in swimming lessons, and not so much in outdoors because it depends on the location and depends also on the season of the year. So these are the main considerations of this survey. To be able to swim and to be water competent are defined in most countries, but references are quite different. So I told you about the use of this concept, be able to swim and water competence, as two different concepts, but they are being used as in the common way. Swimming is part of the PA curriculum as a compulsory subject in less than half of the European countries. Most swimming federations have running learn to swim programs, which is very good news. Only half of the countries require swimming teachers to obtain license, but expiration, training, and basic qualifications varies deeply, as I show you. There seems to be some major barriers: lack of facilities, lack of funding for lower socioeconomic groups, a need for a qualification system, and perhaps insufficient swimming teachers in some regions. Lastly, water safety responsibilities vary among European countries, and most federations don't have any kind of involvement on that. So, thank you so much for your time. This is our major considerations, and I would like very much this to stimulate a discussion further during this conference. We have very important material to be discussed, not only in this conference, but further after this conference. And thank you so much for your attention. I hope this caught your attention. And thank you so much, Len, for inviting me to be here. And I will pass to Aisling and give Aisling the floor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aldo. So hopefully between Aldo and our speakers this morning, the scene is well and truly set now in terms of the challenges both individuals and national federations overcome in learning to swim, but also then in developing learn to swim programs. So it's always easy to talk about all the problems and the challenges, but then you have to look at what are the solutions that we can come up with. So Len formed the Learn to Swim Commission with a view to looking at these solutions, as Aldo has already introduced. So I'm going to talk through the next pillar, which is the standards and the framework development. So just to give you a little bit of a why, because with any program, you have to ask yourself, well, why are we doing this? And, you know, some of the things that we had to consider is looking at a European standard. And, you know, again, going back to what Aldo has just presented there, it's very clear that how mixed it is across European countries. You know, we do also want to gather data on swimming competencies at key development stages. And this is really important from a funding perspective, but also from an influencing perspective at European policy level. Because at the moment, we very much rely on perceived competency. So what does a child think they can do? We're asking children, can you do this? And when you say to a child, can you do this? Most of the time they'll respond, yeah, I can. Can you swim 25 meters? I don't know what 25 meters is, but sure, of course I can. But if you're going to go and talk to politicians at European level, you need to be able to present concrete data and prove what it is that you're saying that people can or cannot do. And again, that leads back to the first point in terms of that European standard. We have a stronger voice as a collective than we do as individual federations. And, LEN and European Aquatics, sorry, Antonio, European Aquatics have strongly set out Learn to Swim as one of the key initiatives within the CSR policy moving forward. And, the next two then are, there are federations that may not have a framework or have a framework that hasn't been reviewed in a number of years. But we do also recognise that many of you here today have excellent Learn to Swim frameworks in place. So what can we learn from you? And that was one of the next pieces that we looked at in terms of the how. So reviewing the current frameworks within Europe. So you will remember back towards the end of last year, early this year, probably Farouk contacted everyone saying, please send in your frameworks. So the Commission then spent quite a bit of time in terms of reviewing the data that was gathered from the survey, looking at the frameworks that have been developed by our national federations, but also looking more widely in terms of the international context as to what's happening and what is working well. The next piece then was looking at literature. So in terms of the academic research that has been done around Learn to Swim, so again, going back to my comment about perceived competence, there is a huge amount of research out there in terms of perceived competence, but we do want to really focus on developing that actual and tested competencies as well. The next pieces that we moved on to then were developing the water safety and swimming competencies. So you have to start with, well, what is it that we want to achieve? And that took a bit of time, plenty of discussion around that. And when you come up with a definition, there will always be people that will argue with it, and that is the nature of academia, but also practicalities in terms of opinions as well. So there will be some of you that will look at this today and go, well, I don't necessarily agree with that. Come and have a discussion. And that's, part of what we're trying to achieve in terms of engaging with as many federations as possible and having those discussions. We then moved on to identifying key development stages, which I'll touch on in just a minute. And we developed a 12-stage Learn to Swim framework. So I'm going to introduce you to that. And I suppose just to touch on, firstly, the water safety competence definition. So again, this was very much looking at the literature that was out there and considering, well, what do we want to achieve? As Aldo mentioned, a lot of the federations don't have responsibility for water safety. But what we want to do is make our children drown-proof. So if we're teaching them to swim, but we're actually not preventing drowning, there is a challenge there. So when we looked at water safety, we talked about basic aquatic skills and what we call aquatic knowledge. So how to save your own life and how to be safe around water. The next definition then, just to talk about the aquatic skills. So those basic aquatic skills we looked at in the water safety definition, and most of you will recognise these. You could be calling them core aquatic skills. I know I do in Ireland. But these are the basic skills that we want children to learn. And they are also very much linked in terms of physical literacy, the skills that we want children to gain on land. And it is important that they're learning these at a young age. The basic aquatic knowledge then, so we considered, well, what is the knowledge that we want children to learn in our Learn to Swim framework? What are the things that we want them to be able to do? And it is about understanding the dangers, recognising different bodies of water and the dangers associated with them. One of the biggest risks in terms of drowning, and particularly boys of teenage ages, they are the most at risk, certainly in Ireland anyway, because they have a bravado about them. They know everything. So they don't necessarily understand their own ability, but also their own limitations. Then there's things like, knowing how to stay calm in a dangerous situation and how to keep yourself safe and how to use life-saving aids and call for help. If they are skills that we can teach children by the age of 12, we will be doing very well. So moving on from that then, we looked at the swimming competence definition. And we talked again about the aquatic or swimming skills. So those aquatic skills that I showed on the second last slide there, but also the swimming skills, because we do want them to actually be able to swim as well. So putting all of those three together, so the basic aquatic skills, the aquatic knowledge, and the swimming skills, we then moved on to look at the minimum competencies for the Learn to Swim framework. Now, I am going to say, lots of you will look at that and say, well, when I start to show what we want to achieve by certain ages, well, we do much more than that in our framework. The important thing to really outline here are minimum competencies. It's brilliant if you can do more, but what we want to achieve are minimum competencies. Not every child will have access to swimming lessons 40 weeks of the year. So what are the minimum things that we want them to be able to do by the age of 12? So each competency stage is not limited by age, but it is important that we give some age guidance on it. Because again, we're all involved in learning to swim here. A lot of us have that knowledge. But if you start going to talk to people at European politicians level, they're not going to know anything. They're going to be like, well, what age do they need to be able to do that by? Because they're thinking in terms of education and, the time that children leave their primary level of education. So we've set out 3 key stages. So the first stage is fundamental and very much focused on the basic aquatic skills. Then we have development and application. Now, what I will say is, this again is very much at the draft stage, so very open to feedback. And, we've kept it very simple in terms of bronze, silver and gold. It may not be that by the time we get to the final published version. Let me just move on there. So I'm going to skip over that, but that's just to give you a sense of what we're considering in terms of the 3 distinct stages that are important. So the first development stage, and this comes within the bronze. So we've looked at the ages of 3 and 6 within the bronze level. And, by the age of 3, we're very much focusing on basic aquatic skills. So what can a child do by the time they're 3? So getting in and out of the water, basic flotation, aquatic breathing, and being able to splash water and grab at toys. And the reason that we have put the 3-year-old in is that some children and some countries will have access at that age. So let's give some guidance around that. But we do also recognise that not all children will have that opportunity to learn to swim maybe before we go to school. And we do feel that the age of 6 is an important checkpoint because they are generally looking to start school around the ages of 5 and 6. And I can see you're all taking photos, which is great. And it is important because these are the things that we want you to give us feedback on. So you'll see again, there is nothing here on swimming skills by the age of 6. We're very much focused on aquatic skills and aquatic knowledge. And even in terms of aquatic knowledge, they are basic things that we want children to be able to do. We want them to know how to be safe in and around water. We want them to know, well, you only know this amount so far, but, you can do this. And we do want them to know how to call for help. I mean, I've heard many stories in the media in terms of young children calling, 999 or 112 if their parent becomes ill. And that is an important skill that we should be able to give to children. And in general, children are more likely to remain calm in a situation than an adult is anyway. So it's important that we share that with them. And you can see then the aquatic skills have progressed a little bit on from the age of 3. So moving on then, the next checkpoint we looked at was the age of 9. And the reason we did this was we wanted, 3 major checkpoints when children are entering school, when children are finishing school, and then we thought, well, we need something in between because that's a long time to not have a checkpoint in terms of looking at children's competencies in the water. And you can see now that it's starting to develop a little bit more in terms of aquatic skills, aquatic knowledge, and swimming skills. What you will see, though, under swimming skills, we don't talk about front crawl or freestyle or breaststroke or backstroke. We talk about swimming on the front for 25 metres. And, yes, it's brilliant if they can swim freestyle, a beautiful freestyle for 25 metres or breaststroke for 25 metres. We want them to be able to move through the water safely for 25 metres. And again, when we looked at a lot of the frameworks, there was a lot of those similar references in terms of being able to be safe in the water for a distance or a period of time. And just in terms of aquatic skills, some of the important things that we looked at was then moving them into deep water by the age of 9. So can they be safe in and out of deep water, and also, doing some of those aquatic skills while wearing clothing. So trying to simulate what they may have to experience if they're in the open water. The last one then. So by the age of 12. So it is generally recognised within Europe, children are finishing their first level of education around the age of 12 or 13 years, somewhere between 11 and 13. So we looked at 12 years of age. So again, everything then is in deep water in terms of aquatic skills. By the time they get to 12, we do want them to be able to do a little bit more in terms of their aquatic knowledge. So how to keep themselves safe in the water and recognising different bodies of water. Excuse me. And then in terms of swimming skills, over those 3 years, we are looking for them to be able to move on the back and the front for 100 metres, but also swim while wearing clothing. So again, recognising that if they fall into a body of water that is not in a swimming pool, wearing clothing, that they are likely to be able to react and stay safe. So that is the work that we have done so far. Lots done, more to do. And I suppose in terms of next steps, you're going to see some of that tomorrow when Farouk and Boro present to you. But in terms of next steps, feedback. You've taken lots of photos there while I'm on stage. It's not feeling self-confident, conscious at all about that. But, we definitely do want feedback on those 4 different competencies. 4 different development stages. But we also then are looking at applying for an Erasmus project in the next year to further develop this and also then support other countries then in their development. So we will be looking for your input on that. And that is pretty much me. I see I've got a bottle of water here waiting for me, so I'm going to hand back over to Nick for any questions.
Thank you so much. Obviously, incredibly fascinating talks by the pair of you. Aldo, if you'd like to come back on stage. If everyone has questions, you can have a quick think of those, and then we'll come to you in a moment. But we'll just dive into those kind of the findings and the discussions a little bit more. Aldo, first of all, to yourself, when the results from the survey started to come in, were you surprised by them, or did it sort of reiterate what you already thought in terms of the importance of creating a framework like you've just outlined?
Well, the results are very important. Mm-hmm. Were very important to the Commission to understand how much variation exists in the European, in all the countries. So it was important for us to understand that. For instance, Aisling present the definitions of water safety and to be water competent. Mm-hmm. And it was a surprise for me not having in some countries that definition. And we should discuss that, because if you don't understand very good the difference between aquatic skills and swimming skills, you don't put the water safety between this. So it was important to understand how much variation exists, what is keeping us apart, based on that, bring us together to what we are all searching for, which is water safety.
Absolutely. Aisling, if may, obviously looking at what you outlined there, you identified a few key age groups. So I think it was 3, 6, 9, and 12. What particularly thought or made you think those were the key milestones?
I got the dodgy.
This is going to be an ongoing thing.
Yeah. So we looked at key educational stages. So when children are entering school, and finishing primary level education. So 6 and 12 were particularly important. But then also then looking, well, that's actually quite a big gap. And anybody that has children or is around children will know that they develop a huge amount between the ages of 0 and 6, particularly in terms of physical literacy. So it is important to have that checkpoint at 3 years of age. And then, we were on a roll then in terms of, 3, 6, 12, is quite obvious that there was a gap in between. And, when you add the numbers up, again, having that checkpoint around 9 years of age. And, there is research there in terms of physical literacy that children need to have developed those key skills by around the age of 7 or 8 years of age. So 9 is a good point to look at that in terms of the key development stages as well. So that's where we got to. I'm sure there's lots of academics in the room that will argue, oh, you should have thought about this age. So again, we're very open to feedback on that.
I suppose it's in so many ways highlighting the importance of those young age groups, though, isn't it? Because a lot of the time I know when I'm covering swimming, people look at the dropout rate when they're talking about sort of 15, 16, 17-year-olds, but that's at an elite level quite a lot of the time. We're talking about participation here. It's so key you engage and continue to from a young age, from a life point of view, a skill point of view.
Well, change this. That's good.
Sure.
Yes, that question remember me one project we have in Portugal to attend not only that, but also the need to include different stuff when you are delivering aquatic education. The Portuguese Swimming Federation is now changing the way swimming is being delivered, including not only swimming skills, but water polo skills, synchronized swimming skills. And this is important not only to open up the type of motor competence in the water, but also I believe this will be important to keep the children aware and to keep the children engaged in swimming. Your question does not, my answer does not answer exactly to the report, but I remember this, and I believe it's an important remark.
Absolutely. Perfect stuff. Do we have any questions out there before I dive in with a few more? Come on, there was some fascinating data. We do have one there. That's great. I'll tell you what, I'll give you this one. I'll go get the other.
Christine.
Thank you so much for this nice presentation and the work you did. My question is on the knowledge. You said children should learn how to react and to cope with danger. Do you think by offering only knowledge, they, for example, know how to react on a cold shock or on other dangerous situations? How do you combine the knowledge with the skills and the physiological reaction that they really have to try out before they realize how they will react in reality?
That's a good question. Thanks for starting with such an easy question, by the way.
I appreciated it.
Yeah. So in terms of knowledge, I mean, we're not looking for swimming teachers and certainly wouldn't be suggesting that swimming teachers are lecturing, to children at the side of the pool. So there will be, some in terms of integrating it within your swimming lessons, possibly scenario-based. But also then, if there are, federations that are able then to develop open water opportunities in terms of bringing children to the open water, those are the types of skills that we really do want children to take away. But, like I said, we are very much at the draft stage. So one of the key points that we looked at in terms of the framework was not getting into a huge amount of detail to give the flexibility to both federations but also then providers in terms of how they develop that. But yeah, thanks for that.
Nice way to warm you up.
Can I add something?
Yeah, please do.
I know Christine for a long time. I know Christine loved to study these issues, particularly the relationship between the perception and actual competence. And your question raised an important issue in my point of view, because when you increase, when children start to participate in swimming classes, the gap between perception and actual competence will be narrow. So by doing that way, they will be more aware of their actual competence in different water environments. And that's a very important issue, in my opinion.
Well addressed. Anybody else? Another one here in the fourth row. Thank you. We'll just get the microphone over to you. Just while we're waiting for it to get there, I know a lot of you have been taking photos of the screen. Feel free to continue doing that. Hopefully it's very helpful. But just as a reminder, the presentations will be emailed to you after the event. So don't worry if you miss a key slide. You will be able to get it in the next couple of days. Please take it away.
So I have two questions. Based on your research, which European country has best practice, in your opinion, or countries? And the second is, do you also look at other countries out of Europe for best practices?
That question is for me?
Anyone who can answer.
Neither wanted to answer it, maybe. Political. Good luck.
Yeah. So we didn't rank federations' Learn to Swim frameworks. And, there's no preference in terms of what was out there. But the one thing that I would say is that there was a huge amount of variety within the Learn to Swim frameworks. And that actually was really helpful in some ways in terms of seeing the scope of what was being covered and, to support us in terms of the development of the framework. In terms of looking outside of Europe, yes, we absolutely did. We looked internationally as widely as we could. And particularly, I will say, English literature that we could find or anything that we could translate. So we went as broad as we could. It doesn't mean to say that we I don't know how many countries in the world. I know there's over 200, so we certainly didn't review that many, but as many as we could certainly get our hands on. Yeah. Would you like us to rank them?
Yes. Not for judgment, but just to gather information and to look at their practices.
I guess it could be motivational as well, potentially. Great questions. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, while you think of them, I will throw... Oh, there is one, sorry. Missed you just in the shade a little bit there in the back.
My question is, will there be or is there a definition for a safe swimmer? So when is a child a safe swimmer?
Another easy question. Thank you, Roker.
I think we've got a couple of journalists in here, haven't we? Yeah?
Yes. Well, you are a safe swimmer if you can deal with the problems in the water. And that water can be a swimming pool, which is a very stable environment, and can be the sea with waves and currents. So you are a safe swimmer and if you can deal with different water environments and feel safe in this environment. That's, for me, the most important thing. Of course, you need to include some basic aquatic skills. Maintain your head above the water, to reach for a safe place and so on. But you need to feel safe. You need to feel confident in the water, whatever the type of water you are in. You want to add something, I know. No.
No problems. Anyone else out there? Hand up and wave. Okay, I'll give you a moment to oh, yeah, there is another one. A couple of rows further forward. If we can.
We have the problem, you were mentioning that everybody is talking about perceived swimming competencies. How do we tackle to get numbers about actual swim competency?
How do we tackle?
How do we tackle the problem that we always talk about when we do a questionnaire? We have the perceived water competency, and you were mentioning that kids were saying, yes, I'm capable of everything, I'm a superhuman. But actually they are drowning after 5 meters.
Yes, in fact, I published a paper last year about that. And the difference between perception and real competence is higher when the kids are younger. So, and that can be, after 8 years old, they will be, the actual and the perceived competence will be closer. And much more closer if they had, of course, experience in the water. At least it's what research is saying. But of course, when you are asking kids some aquatic skills that they didn't do any time in their lives, so you get strange questions. For instance, last week we are now starting the data gathering of one Erasmus project. François Potvin will present you next, the ALFAC project. And we are receiving in the faculty of Porto several elementary school children with completely different backgrounds. And it's amazing, until now, every kid say, the first swimming task, entering the water, you choose what type of entrance you want to do, and then you choose the type of exit you want to do. No matter what, they always say, I can enter in the water and I can exit to the water. Of course, some of them won't, so you need to be aware to catch someone because they close their eyes, they stay with the rigid position, and they drown if you don't are aware of that. So that's a very, very important question, and we need to be aware of that, as swimming teachers.
I think just to add to that, because it is a key question that we have asked ourselves several times, and when Farouk will be presenting tomorrow in terms of looking ahead, it will be one of those measurements that we'll be looking to include in terms of the Erasmus programme, because I think it's important both from a national federation perspective but also from a European level to be able to report on that and see the effects. Is there any change over a period of time? So that is it's a big measurement piece that we're looking towards over the next number of years. Stay tuned.
Looking forward to that. We've got time probably for one more, if anyone else does have a burning question. Antonio.
It's not really a question, but I think it's important to give a global overlook to the project. Otherwise, we miss the motivation. This is the first part of the presentation. Thank you, Asling and Haldwan. Sorry to not mention, and I will take the opportunity to do this during my first speak, the excellent work of Mary from Ireland. The first discussions that I had about this and about other projects was with her. So the global approach, it's very simple. It's not a research project. We are not doing this because of research. We are doing this in a way that we can define the standards, EU standards related to drowning prevention and having European Aquatics as the leader organization that could learn from very good countries in Europe. For instance, Nordics, all of you know that you have a very good system implemented already in the school. At least 90, I don't know the precise statistics. Christer is here, Roker is also here, Kato from Norwich know precisely this, but I think that 92 to 95% of all children know these competencies. And there are other countries in Europe that don't have this system in place. So the idea is to define the minimum requirements related to this. And then try to learn with the best practices in a benchmarking way and try to teach the other countries how to implement either in the national federation or to help with the Minister of Education, Culture, Sports, wherever. This is the second step, very important. And third, this is a project. We need to look to all the parts related to difficulties to implement this project. This is a global project. That's, I think, tomorrow Farouk will try to show in the second part, but just to have this global overview. What about education of the teachers? What about the certification of the key requirements of the system? What about the pools that need to be built based on the needs of each one of the countries. There are some, what about some marketing opportunities for some swim brands in order to be with us in developing further materials, equipments for these learning to swim programs? There's a lot that we can do and we are going to do in this global project. This is just the presentation of the report, the survey, plus the pedagogical proposal that it's under discussion, that we decide to present to you in order to have some additional comments, to do some updates to the final proposal in order to move on afterwards to discuss with the EU decision-making, policy decision-makers. It's very important to implement. Erasmus program will be in this direction. It will not be in a research program. It will be in a way that we can define a certificated program that could be implemented all over Europe. This is just a clarification. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Antonio, yeah, please, round of applause. And obviously a huge thank you to the pair of you for your time there. Just before you go, I've got to give you a couple of these as well as a thank you. Thank you. No problems. Ladies and gentlemen.